भक्ति ज्ञान क्रियात्मकान् शूद्रान् कामांश्चलैः प्राणैः जुषन्तः संसरन्ति ते। श्रीभगवानुवाच य एतान् मत्पथो हित्वा भक्तिज्ञान क्रियात्मकान् शूद्रान् कामांश्चलैः प्राणैर् जुषन्तः संसरन्ति ते। श्रीभगवानुवाच य एतान् मत्पथो हित्वा भक्तिज्ञान क्रियात्मकान् शूद्रान् कामांश्चलैः प्राणैः जुषन्तः संसरन्ति ते।
श्रीभगवानुवाच य एतान् मत्पथो हित्वा भक्तिज्ञान क्रियात्मकान् शूद्रान् कामांश्चले प्राणे जुषन्तः संसरन्ति ते।
श्रीभगवानुवाच
शूद्रान् कामांश्चलैः प्राणे जुषन्तः संसरन्ति ते।
श्रीभगवानुवाच एतान् मत्पथो हित्वा
वैष्णवीस
श्रीभगवानुवाच भक्तिज्ञानक्रियात्मकान् शूद्रान् कामांश्चले प्राणे जुषन्तः संसरन्ति ते।
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Ye, those who, Etan, these, Matpathaha, means for achieving me, Hitva, giving up, Bhakti, devotional service, Gyan, analytic philosophy, Kriya, regulated work, Atmakan, consisting of, Shudran, insignificant, Kaman, sense gratification, Chalai, by the flickering, Pranai, senses, Jushantaha, cultivating, Samsaranti, undergo material existence, they. Translation and purport by the followers of Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who give up these methods for achieving me, which consist of devotional service, analytic philosophy, and regulated execution of prescribed duties, and instead, being moved by the material senses, cultivate insignificant sense gratification, certainly undergo the continual cycle of material existence. As clearly explained by Lord Krishna in the previous chapters, philosophical analysis and also the performance of prescribed duties are ultimately meant for achieving Krishna consciousness or pure love of God. Devotional service based on hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord directly engages the conditioned soul in the Lord's loving service and thus is the most efficient means of achieving the Lord. All three processes, however, share a common goal, Krishna consciousness. Now the Lord describes those who, being completely absorbed in material sense gratification, do not adopt any authorized means to achieve the Lord's mercy. Currently, hundreds of millions of unfortunate human beings fit squarely into this category and, as described here, perpetually suffer the bondage of material existence. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जलिशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः नमा ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो विष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार आसादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे।
Hare Krishna. So very fortunate to have this great Chaitanya Prabhu here to us from Shishadipuram. I'll give a brief introduction. So I remember my spiritual journey started with Prabhuji's lectures. So I used to do a lot of mana seva when I was in my first year way back in 2004. I used to go for doing charity and other teaching students, and that time devotees kept a special lecture for me by Chaitanya Prabhu is Madhav Seva, Mana Seva or not. And Prabhuji's class was so enlightening. One class was sufficient to break up the concepts that we should do Madhav Seva, not required. Mana Seva is a subset of Madhav Seva. And any class Prabhuji gives a spiritual scientist. So he made spirituality very rational, logical, even modern use can answer very easily, and Prabhu's concepts are so clear, and that's why Prabhu is an international preacher. Anybody can relate to him there because he presents such a approach that it has to appeal to the intelligence there. Last time Prabhu had taken a class of poison and nectar, happiness in mode of passion and goodness. So I asked the voice devotees about something, and they so powerfully quoted the same points from your class that they were convinced to stay in voice and follow rules and regulations. So we are fortunate to have Prabhuji's association, and Prabhuji writes every day some or other articles, Gita Daily, and Prabhuji's new book has come. You are not your mind, you are better. And today's topic is something makes us better. He finds out how our mind cheats us in devotion service and how to overcome it there. So there is a lot more things, but and Prabhuji is also invited speaker at TEDx, World Peace Conference, UNESCO, Intel, Google, Microsoft, and MIT, Cambridge. It gives 400 talks across 100 cities in 4 continents every year. There's much more to add. So we thank Prabhuji and hear from Prabhuji there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I'm grateful to be here with all of you today, and this is the middle, more the heart of the Uddhav Gita, coming towards the concluding 1/3. And Krishna, in one sense, is here giving us a summary of his teachings. And what is he saying over here? Ya etan matpatho hitva. He says that those who neglect these 3 paths that I have given, and then let's look at what he's saying. If we consider the soul over here in this world, and above is the spiritual reality, which ultimately culminates in Krishna. So, okay. So now Krishna is saying, in one sense, there are three paths that people can follow. Bhakti, Jnana, Kriyatmakan. Bhakti, Jnana, and Kriya is karma. And matpatho hitva. If somebody gives up this path, and what does that person do? That person, Shudran. Shudran indriya chalai. That a person seeks sensual pleasure. The senses are always moving towards sense objects. So Krishna says, if that person does this, then Jushanti samsarantite. That means that person, what will happen to that person is, that person will continue on the samsara chakra. The samsara chakra, samsarantiye. So, if one seeks sensual pleasure, that person will continue in the cycle of birth and death. In one sense, Krishna is indirectly encouraging a person to start taking to spiritual life. That whether a person practices karma, jnana, or bhakti doesn't matter. The point is that a person should seek something higher in life. So, so when we function in life, for all of us, we are all driven by certain questions. We could say, in fact, an individual is defined by their driving questions. If we want to know who is a person, what characterizes a person, then we look at their driving questions. A question means, here we are talking, it doesn't have to be necessarily a philosophical question. The question could be, okay, how can I earn more money? The question could be, how can I become more famous? The question could be, how can I defeat that person? Everybody has some question. Some questions are articulated questions. That means we have consciously worded those questions. But some questions are unarticulated. So, unarticulated means we ourselves may not know that this is the particular question whose answer I am seeking. So right now, you come for this class. Now, some of you may have some articulated questions. Okay, that I heard the topic was about the mind and reality. I want to learn a little bit about it. Others, the question, there might not be any conscious question. But then there's a question that, how do I grow in spiritual life? Okay, I understand the Bhagavatam. I come in association. Then that's another question. For somebody else, another question could be that, I'm tired already. It's been a long morning. When this class ended, I can go to sleep. Or for somebody else, the question is, where can I sit in the class so that I can sleep without anybody disturbing me? So, we all have certain driving questions within us. So, now each one of us is, we could say almost in one sense, the quality of life is directly proportional to the quality of the driving question. That people often talk about the standard of living. And yes, improving the standard of living is important. It's helpful. If somebody is living in poverty, then they want to live in relatively more comfort, relatively more prosperity. That's fine. So, if you want to think of progress, see, there is the standard of living. And somebody may want to raise that. That's fair enough. But actually, if you really want to be happy, what we need to raise is our standard of longing, not just the standard of living. Longing means, what is it that I'm looking for in my life? What is it that is my driving desire? So here the question is associated with our desire, our driving, defining desire. So if we want to improve the quality of our life, improving the standard of living is fine. You can earn more money, get a bigger house, have a better job, have a higher paying job. Nowadays, all that is okay. What young people want is, I want more followers on Instagram. That's the purpose of life, isn't it? So, okay, all these things are fine, but the standard of longing, what are we looking for in life? That is more important. The making money is important, but what we are making with money is even more important. So, what do I do with this on the table? So, the important thing is when Krishna is talking this verse that samsaranti. So he's saying that if a person's driving questions don't rise, so when you do that, everybody's driving question is not what I speak, but what you do. So maybe you can complete that. So if we could say that, again going back to that earlier point, if the driving question is is great is more material pleasure, that if the driving question is how can I get more material pleasure in life, then this question itself, Krishna says, is the path to samsara. It is the path to continuing on in material existence. Now, the search for pleasure is natural. It is innate to us. Anandmayo abhyasat. But instead of simply more material pleasure, it is more meaningful pleasure. If somebody starts asking, what brings meaning to my life? What is it that is meaningful for me? What can I do that can make a difference, that can make a contribution in the world? What can I do by which I can achieve something that is enduring? When we are seeking, everybody wants pleasure, but when we start seeking more meaningful pleasure, that is the start of the journey toward a higher consciousness. So, in one sense, karma, gyana, and bhakti are all three means to find meaning. They are pathways by which people seek some greater meaning in their life. I'll explain how that is so. But the key point is that Krishna is giving these two alternatives. Do I simply want more material pleasure, or do I want more meaningful pleasure? Now, can material pleasure itself be meaningful? Well, yes and no. See, when a person has no material things, see, if a person is dying out of hunger, then the most meaningful thing for that person is food. They desperately need food. And at that time, the meaningful question is, okay, how can I get some food? But people say, oh, there are, what Krishna was mentioning about Manav Seva, Madhav Seva. There's nothing wrong about Manav Seva at all. In fact, if somebody is thinking about serving humanity, that is far better than serving their own senses. Isn't it? So it's a noble activity. It's not that there's anything at all wrong with it. Even if more people do Manav Seva, that's excellent. The thing is that when we are thinking of helping others, when we are thinking of serving others, so how do I do that? So in one sense, the Madhav Seva, in one sense, is the most meaningful way of doing Manav Seva. It is the most effective, most transformative way. So, when we talk about can more material things bring meaning in life? So, if we are looking for the quest for meaning, hmm, so at one level, getting material things, that itself can bring meaning in life. Somebody has lived in power, extreme poverty, think, I want to get a good, comfortable house. I want to take care of my family properly. Now, that can be a driving force in a person's life, and that can be meaningful. That's good. But beyond that, a greater meaning can come in giving material things. Many people who become extremely wealthy sooner or later start doing charity. Now, the cynical way of looking at that charity is that they just want fame. And there is a possibility of that. But they can get fame in so many different ways. They don't have to necessarily do charity to give fame. So why? Because there is people don't just want money, people also want meaning in life. And if I can do something good with my money, if I can do something good for someone else, that brings some satisfaction. That's why I said making money, it's important. For some people, that is what brings meaning to their life. But what we are making with money is even more important. So somebody makes money. Bhakti Thakur said that the person in Rajoguna is definitely better than a person in Tamoguna. A person, say, who responsibly takes care of their family is far better than a person who is an alcoholic or a drug addict and doesn't care for anything at all. Or nowadays a person could be a video game addict, internet addict. I saw one meme of the internet age. This man is telling his friend, he said, yesterday my broadband internet went down. So I spent some time with my family. They seem to they seem to be like nice people. So people can become completely oblivious. So you could say that if not even seeking material things, this somebody doesn't seek material things doesn't mean that they are spiritual. You know, so in some ways, externally speaking, ignorance and transcendence can look very similar. But they are not at all similar. A person in Tamoguna can be so caught in their head that they're completely unconcerned about even material things. A person in transcendence is also unconcerned about material things. But one's caliber is not defined by what you are unconcerned about. It is defined by what you are concerned about. Isn't it? So Srila Prabhupada in one lecture told his Western followers, the Western followers who came to Srila Prabhupada, most of them were a part of what is called the counterculture. And within that, the counterculture, the most visible demographic was the hippies. So the counterculture means these people were, young people were skeptical of mainstream education, mainstream religion, mainstream politics, mainstream industry, everything. So what is the point of having a job, getting married, having children? What's the point of all this? So they were part of the counterculture. And they just rejected the norms of society. Now among them, the hippies were the most colorful. So they are the most visible. But the counterculture was much bigger. So the point is, Prabhupada says in one of his lectures to the people of the counterculture, that those were his prominent demographic. He said, you were already practicing Sarva Dharman Parityaj. But I taught you how to do Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. So they were not concerned about education, about career, about money, about health, even about basic sanitation. So that was Sarva Dharman Parityaj. But that is not enough. That's why both ignorance and transcendence, people are unconcerned about material things. Somebody might go high on drugs or they go high on alcohol and they just fall down and they fall unconscious or fall asleep in the middle of a street or in a dark street corner, dirty place. They are unconcerned about where they lie down. And a person in transcendence might also just sleep under a tree, might just be absorbed in Krishna. They might be unconcerned about externals. But the point is, one's consciousness is not defined by what one is unconcerned about, but what are you concerned about? So they are concerned about Krishna, concerned about the ultimate reality in life. What is truly meaningful? And what are they concerned about? Those who are in Tamoguna are simply concerned about escapism. They want to escape from material reality by getting lost inside their head, inside their mind. Once a person read a book, read an article about the dangers of smoking. And it inspired him to firm and decisive action. He said, I will never again read any article about the dangers of smoking. So not that I will stop smoking, but I will never again read any article. So such people who are in Tabakuda, they are completely fixed on their escapism from the world. And whatever enables them to escape, they are very concerned about that. But they're not concerned about anything else. So somebody who's an alcoholic, they may be drinking a bottle of alcohol and they fall down and the bottle breaks. And the breaking of the bottle may cause them to get hurt and they may be bleeding. But they will think, okay, in the broken bottle, is there some drop of alcohol? Let me drink that. So they are very concerned about something. But they're concerned about what enables them to escape from the banality, the inanity, the emptiness of material existence. So, if we consider this way, now I talked about how the search for happiness involves our driving question. It is defined by what is my driving question. And the driving question is simply to get material things. Can material things bring meaning? Yes, to a limited degree. It can bring meaning. But beyond that, we need something more. Because we are not material creatures. There is a core to us which goes beyond our material side. And this is where we start seeking non-material meaning. What is it that will bring value to my life? So, we often from India we think that the West is very materialistic. Well, yes and no. Of course, the West is very materially progressive. The West is very materially sensual, very materially infatuated. That is true. But there is a significant demographic in the West who call themselves as the post-material generation. Now, this post-material is not intrinsically spiritual. What they mean is post-material is, especially the youth in America now. It's not in America, to some extent Australia also. They are not really concerned about getting the job which will give the maximum money. They are concerned more about, okay, which job will bring meaning to my life? Which job will help me to make a difference? And that's why people may go into art and people may go into music and people may go into this and that. For some people it may be science and scientific research. But the post-material ethos is what? That material things are not the most important things. Their primary career choices are not determined by money or fame. It's determined by, okay, this is what makes me feel that I am doing something valuable. So now in one sense, this post-material, the sociologists say that this comes after a civilization or a culture has acquired a certain level of material comfort. If people are struggling for food, then it's very difficult for them to think, what is the meaning of my life? It's possible, but those people have to have a lot of spirituality from their previous lives. So the post-material ethos, actually, this is it's not a overwhelming demographic, but it is a significant demographic. And if you see, the point is that everybody at some level or the other is seeking meaning in life. And now, so I talked about the lower part of this verse, that that if the only meaning we are seeking is in material pleasure alone, soon it becomes meaningless. Soon it becomes pointless. If somebody just thinks the purpose of my life is to eat good food, okay, yeah, everybody wants to eat good food. Nobody says that the purpose of my life is to eat terrible food, isn't it? That's not the point. But life is not just meant for eating. There is, after we eat, what do we do next after that? That's equal. That's much more important. The quality of life is not determined by the quality of food you eat. Now, the quality of food is an important part, but there is more to life than that. So, similarly, we have our bodily side, we have our bodily needs, but as people start seeking something more in their life, now if we consider this mountain, and this mountain, as you go higher, it is a increasing meaning. What a person starts doing is more and more meaningful for them. What is it that will bring more meaning to a person's life? That is something which at one level is objective, that means it's universal. At another level, it is subjective. It is individual. I'll explain this, that meaning, there is a universal aspect to it, and there is an individual aspect to it. That means at one level, everybody wants to feel that my existence has some value. One of the most disempowering things in life is to feel that my existence has no value at all. That whether I live or die, it will make no difference to anyone. If we start feeling like that, that is the pathway to a very dark state of mental health. Nowadays, so many people suffer from depression. And one of the defining characteristics of depression is an utter absence of desire. And that is why it is found that those religious paths which emphasize giving up desire too much, their followers tend to be more depressed than even materialistic people. Because what happens is that we all need to have some desire to do something in life. Every day, when we wake up in the morning, see, some people say, I'm not a morning person. What does it mean? That is, there's those people, when they wake up in the morning, unless they drink some coffee or tea, they are always in a bad mood. In the morning, they are mourning. Why do you have to wake up? It's not pleasant. It's relatively easy to be just lying comfortably in bed. But while you could say some people are not morning people, but everybody needs some reason to get up in the morning. Life is a struggle. And if people feel that, now what is the point even of living? If you have no desire, it's actually a very dangerous state to be in. It's a mentally, tamoguna is characterized. Now you may say nobody can have no desire. Yeah, a person who has no desire to wake up or has a desire to keep sleeping. So everybody has some desire or the other. That's why I said tamoguna is characterized by the desire to escape even from material reality. So we could say that the material reality is physical reality. Now, of course, material is more than physical, but there's a physical reality around us. Now, bigger than the physical reality is the spiritual reality. This world is ekapad vibhuti. It is now that fifth dimension is not literal. If emphasis is that the spiritual world is far bigger than the material world. But now beyond the physical, so above the physical reality is the spiritual reality. However, you could say below the physical reality is, you could say, the mental reality. Mental reality means that person is living a script in their is living a movie inside their own head, and in some ways dealing with the physical world gets the person out of their head. If that person cannot get out of the head, then this mental reality itself can actually become like a black hole. A black hole means that person gets completely sucked into that. So that person just lives thinking, okay, where can I get the next drink? Where I can get the next drug? Where can I watch the next movie? Where can I, what is the next thing to do by which I can deaden myself, I can escape from even the physical reality of life. So this situation is actually a very dark situation to be in. In the evening session, when I talk about depression of addiction, I'll talk about this a little bit more. The point is that when a person is so when a person everybody has a mind, and everybody's mind shapes their experience of reality. So right now all of you are hearing this talk. Now while you are hearing this talk, each one of you is experiencing this talk differently. Some of you may like some points, some of you may not like some points. Some of you find this interesting, some of you this is exhausting. So now, so there is a mental reality, and that mental reality is shaping your experience of physical reality. You could say that the talk is about spiritual subjects. That's fine, but let's focus on the fact that you are sitting in a class over here, and you are hearing this class. So your mental reality shapes your experience of physical reality. But for some people, their mental reality doesn't shape their experience of spiritual reality, sorry, of their physical reality. Their mental reality is their only experience of reality. That means that person is sitting in the class, but that person is not sitting in the class. That person is, maybe they're not asleep, but actually, at least when you are asleep, you can be woken up. But that person is lost in their head. You know, they're distracted, they are caught in some thoughts. And for them, if they're worried about this, if they're craving for that, then that is all that they're experiencing. And when that happens, like somebody's watching a movie, somebody's watching a cricket match. It happened to be once that I was at Mumbai airport, I was coming out of the airport, and along the way somewhere there was some cricket match going on, and there were people. It was like this was the road out, and somehow there was some big TV over here. It was a little bad organization in the sense that there was big TV and everybody was standing and watching. Now there was some path in between, but if you went between the path, you would block the TV. So now, I was thinking that there were many people who would want to go, but maybe it was an important match or something. Everybody who was coming there was also waiting and watching the TV. Nobody seemed wanting to move. So then I said, I want to go. And he said, no, wait. Now, in one sense, among all games, among various games that are there, physical games that are there, physical sports, cricket is actually one of the most inactive sports. Isn't it? In football, the ball is constantly running here, there. But in cricket, you bowl the ball goes somewhere, some one person runs after that, and the ball comes back, then the bowler goes back, and the bowler runs back. There is so much pause in cricket actually. That's why if you do constant activity like basketball or baseball or tennis, you cannot play for 5 days. So the point I was making is that in cricket, even if you want a cricket match, there's a lot of time when nothing is happening. I could have gone in between. But he said no. It's like we want to watch every single moment. Shunyaitam Jagat Sagarvam. Cricket virahe name. So completely fixated on that. There's nothing wrong in sports as a means of entertainment. That is, Krishna says, Yuktahara Viharasya. As a form of entertainment, that is fine. But today, sports is not just a form of entertainment. It's a form of escapism more than entertainment. So it's just, people just want to escape from the world. And this escape, when somebody is seeking escapism, then what happens is, now when I talk about the mental reality, there can be two different aspects to this. There's the reality. I'm using the word reality loosely. Reality means I'm using it to what I am experiencing as real. What I am experiencing as real. So the reality created by my own mind. That's one mental reality. But along with that, there is also reality created by others' minds. So, reality created by others' minds means, say now the entertainment industry is what some of the most creative and you could say creatively brilliant minds, they come together to create a product that will make me forget my reality. I was in America. I invited to give one place. There are many college programs. So, and I was going for one college program. I asked them, okay, which college is this? This is the American Institute of Illusion. So what it meant is that this was the place where people learn to make movies. So what is America? So the idea is that it's illusion. So now actually, if you consider, out of hundreds of movies that happen, there are very few movies that actually do well. There are very few movies that are blockbusters. In the last 1 year, a new term has come up in the movie industry. It is not the blockbuster, but the flopbuster. Flopbuster means what? Some movie, millions of dollars were spent on that. And it doesn't recover even 1/10 or 1/50th of that amount. So it is not just a flop, it is a flop buster. Even the record of flops, it is breaking those records. So many movies in Hollywood are being increasingly driven by a political agenda, a leftist political agenda. And in general, people are getting more and more disillusioned by even Hollywood to some extent. So the point is that to get people to escape, I said most movies become flops. They don't do very well. Why? Because the illusion is not good enough. That if the illusion is not good enough, that illusion doesn't let me forget reality. If somebody says, I have to concentrate to understand this movie. Well, that's not a movie, that's a documentary. The movie is meant you don't need to concentrate. The movie should be able to absorb you. I know you understood. My classes are not movies; they are documentaries. So the point is that for people, there is their mental reality, and that is their only reality, or that is their most important reality. So, and as I said, vihara, Krishna talks about yukta vihara, entertainment, recreation, break. That is fine. So now, entertainment is fine as a break from reality. But today, for many people, reality is a break from entertainment. The most important part of their life, the part of their life they look forward to the most, is at the end of the day when they sit in front of a TV and watch TV. Everything else is just a side show. The most important part of my life is the entertainment. There was some survey, reality is a break from entertainment. So what this means is there's some survey done in America. What is the in your day? Like I started by saying, everyone needs to have something to look forward to. So for many people, the thing to look forward to if there's some daily TV series, what is going to happen in the TV episode? It's a very terrible quality of life if the only thing you have to look forward to in your life is how you can escape from your life. What is your daily dose of escapism? So now we may say, oh, yeah, but life is a struggle. I have this job, I have this relationship, I have this responsibility, I have this challenge. Yeah, life is a trouble. But even within the trouble, each one of us has to find meaning. And karma, jnana, and bhakti are all ways of trying to find some meaning in life. So Krishna is saying that if a person is seeking some meaning in life, then that person matpatha, that person will ultimately come to me. And it is that which is important. So sometimes we may emphasize the fact that bhakti is much more important than karma and jnana. Bhakti is the most recommended path. Yes, that is true because bhakti helps us connect most directly with the source of all meaning. See, now when the Shastras use the word karma, karma can have multiple meanings. I'll make two more points and then we can stop for question answers. So, karma, while it can have many meanings, karma can simply mean sense gratification. Technically, the word for that is bhoga. But karma can mean just sense gratification. When we use the word people are karmis, that means they're just living for sense gratification. But karma can also mean work for future better sense gratification. That means we say karmi the people who work very hard. Well, hard work is not sense gratification. Hard work, you can say, is the opposite of sense gratification. But then the point is they work very hard so that they can have better sense gratification in the future. So this future can be in this life where a person works very hard so that they can become wealthy and powerful and famous or whatever. Or it can be in a future life where a person thinks I'll go to heaven or I'll get heavenly facilities and then I will enjoy over there. But karma in general can also refer to action, or let's put it as work that creates meaning in life. For somebody, say, who's a scientist, and they're not just scientist out of profession. For them, scientists, they're scientists out of passion. Then doing some scientific research is not just something by they're earning a living. That's what gives meaning to their life. That's what inspires them to push on through life's challenges. So everybody needs some purposeful living. Now, there are many things which could create meaning. I said that meaning has a subjective aspect and an objective aspect. So, what creates meaning in life? That's the last part I'll talk about this. So, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. So, in one sense, what creates meaning, as I said, for some people, it is work. The work that they do, it could be to get material things, it could be to give material things, it could be just because that work is according to their nature. That creates meaning in their life. Hmm? So, now generally speaking, if a person does work according to their varna, if a person acts according to what is their nature, they find a sense of intrinsic satisfaction in that. When Krishna says, Shreyan Swadharmo Viguna Paradharmat Sunushitat. Swadharme Nidhanam Shreya Paradharmo, what is it? Bhayavaha. Bhayavaha. Paradharmo Bhayavaha. Now the Gita is an extremely respected book. So there are different people who try to bring credibility to their own teachings or their own missions by quoting the Bhagavad Gita. So this Paradharmo Bhayavaha is one of the slogans of the Gharavapsi movement. That is, somebody is a Hindu and is converted to Christian or Islam. Paradharmo Bhayavaha. That other dharma is very fearful. So don't give up your religion, convert to another religion. Now that is not, you can apply the Gita that way. See, when you quote a verse, you quote a verse, there is in context, there is against context, and then there is beyond context. That way, the against context means what? You are drawing a meaning from the verse that is opposite to the meaning of that verse. That kind of thing this is definitely wrong. We should not be quoting, when you say we quote out of context. Well, quoting out of context can be of two different kinds. Quoting out of context can be to actually defeat the context. Example of quoting out of context. Yes, yesterday, quoting out of context to defeat the context. Yesterday I gave a class for the ISC students, and this was 333 in the Bhagavad Gita. It says, Nigraha kim karishyasi sadrishyam cheshtate swasya prakriter jnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyasi. Nigraha kim karishyasi means what can repression accomplish? So there was a popular there's a popular spiritual teacher in India who took the traditional teachings of Tantra and distorted them, and his teaching was Sambhog se Samadhi. That the more sensual pleasure you get in, then you will go closer and closer to spirituality. And for him, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita is Nigraha kim karishyasi. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita is what can repression accomplish. If you had desires, just fulfill the desires. Now that is certainly not the teaching of the Gita. This is 333, but just 4 verses later, 337, what does Krishna say? Kamesha Krodesha Rajoguna Muda Mahashano Mahapapma Vidye Enamiha Vairinam. This is the all devouring sinful enemy of the world. So this is not just quoting out of context, it is quoting against the context. Where you take a verse and this is in study of literature, this is called torture by translation. Or it can be by interpretation also. It's like, there's some terrible crime has happened. When somebody has been robbed, somebody has been raped, and the police can't find the criminal. So the police want somebody to be the fall guy. And they arrest some person who's innocent. You committed this crime? No, I didn't. Slap him. You committed this crime? No. Beat him. You commit this crime? Yeah. So it's like that. The verse is saying something else. You slap the verse. You beat the verse. You twist the verse so terribly that finally the verse says what you want it to say. So you torture a verse to try to get the meaning you want from it. So there are people who do like that. Now Paradharmo Bhayavaha is not against the context, but it is beyond the context. Krishna is not really talking about Hinduism, Christianity and Islam over there. Yes, that it is true that if people get converted just for material purposes and they become anti-Vedic, that is unhealthy. That is against the principle of the Bhagavad Gita. But so paradharmo bhayavaha. When Krishna is saying this, what does it mean? Krishna is saying basically that whenever we do our work, whenever we do our swadharma, whenever we are acting according to our swadharma, there is intrinsic satisfaction and there is extrinsic satisfaction. Everything that we do, suppose somebody is a scientist. Now they are doing scientific research. They want to do it because they want to earn a living. There is an extrinsic result that they seek. But along with that, if a person is doing work according to their nature, then there will be an intrinsic satisfaction. So if somebody is a singer, see, there are some people for whom they may be good singers, but they have very little love for singing. For them, singing is a tool to money. Singing is a tool to fame. For them, singing is a tool to something else. Now, when that happens, then they don't get any intrinsic satisfaction to that. When you don't get intrinsic satisfaction, when you don't get intrinsic satisfaction through an activity, then the only purpose for doing that activity is the extrinsic satisfaction. And then in seeking that extrinsic satisfaction, that person will start doing unethical things. So that is what is bhayavaha. When Krishna is saying paradharmo bhayavaha, when you do activity that is not according to your nature. If somebody has no interest in business but they get into business, why? Because they want to earn money. That if there is no intrinsic joy in a business also, Krishna says, the Vaishya work, that is actually meant to serve society by providing them goods of value. There are different goods of value. And so Vaishya work is also, the service industry is meant to provide people goods of value. So if a person does not get any joy in that, then if there's no intrinsic satisfaction, they will start extrinsic satisfaction. That's where they will become unethical. That means they will use substandard products. They will try to fleece their customers. They will try to overpromise and underdeliver. See, there are many people who, when they get intrinsic joy in work, they will do a work quality because they have that. That's what is their source of satisfaction. Imagine if a doctor has no pleasure in doing medical work. Their only purpose is to get money. Then what happens is, the doctor will not treat the patient to cure the patient. The doctor will treat the patient to prolong the disease of the patient. Isn't it? So that, because for the doctor there is no real joy in curing the patient. The joy is in earning money. If I have to earn money, then, it's like, okay, you go to a psychologist, okay, how many sessions do you think we'll need to treat my depression? Well, let me see. My son has 4 more years of college education. So, 4 years of sessions. So you are a source of income for me. And it's a paradharmo bhayavaha. When people are not engaged according to their nature, then what happens is they don't find meaning in their work. Then what happens? They seek meaning elsewhere. And then they start seeking meaning in power, in money, in manipulation. That's what is dangerous. So at one level, I was talking about, people can find meaning in their work. Now, at one level, Bhakti says that the ultimate meaning is in worship, is in our relationship with Krishna. Ultimately, what we want is to love and be loved. And that's what brings meaning to our life. So to know that the supremely lovable being loves us and wants us to love him. And in that relationship, we can find happiness. So bhakti, at one level, we can say, is the source of ultimate meaning. Because when we say something gives meaning to my life, what are we looking for ultimately? At one level, we are looking for relationships. When we do something meaningful, when a doctor, say, treats patients, and doctor really gets some intrinsic joy in treating patients. But even a doctor is also a human being. A doctor is not a robot treating, curing people. They also want relationships. So, in one sense, we all want to do some activity in life. So, karma, the path of karma, Krishna says, karma is more about doing activity to find meaning in life. Do some activity that will make a difference. Gyana is the point, is the path of Gyana is not so much do activity, but Gyana is the more the path of change your way of thinking so that you can find meaning in life. Like, why is there so much suffering in life? Actually, it's not that there's suffering in my life, there's suffering in everyone's life. Suffering is just the nature of life. There are most people's lives. Now, is there some meaning in this? Well, yes, at one level there is some meaning, isn't it? There are people's lives. They are defined by three rings. There is the engagement ring. Then there is the wedding ring, and then there is suffering. So now what happens is that you're looking for you look for something to look forward to in life, but there is suffering in life. Now to some extent jnana is, you philosophize to understand this is the nature of the world, and there is some relief in just making sense of suffering. That means that we human beings are not just, it's not that we don't want pain. Of course nobody wants pain, but what we find especially unbearable is pointless pain, isn't it? Like somebody dies goes to what's the border and to defend the country, and they die saving the country. Well, that is distressing, but at least it's meaningful death. But suppose somebody goes to the border, and before they reach the border to fight, their jeep has an accident and they die in the accident. Now that seems, it's far more painful because it is pointless. So in one sense you could say pain pain is itself bad, but when it's pointless pain, it's even worse. So, but when there is meaningful pain, it is bearable. So if it is, so I'm talking about tolerability of suffering. So life is characterized by suffering, no doubt. But the tolerability of suffering is far lesser when there is no meaning to it. But it is when there is some meaning, it becomes more tolerable. I have a friend who works in the military, so he says that there are many times in the military there are freak accidents and people die. But generally, he says that the military, it's a policy, we don't report the freak accidents as freak accident deaths to the family members. We tell that that person was martyred. Why? Because they have lost a family member, at least not let them have the further pain. It was a pointless death. Now you may say that okay, it was a freak accident, but that person had gone there for a glorious cause. Okay, you did not die fighting on the border, but you had the intention to go and fight on the border. So the point is, meaningless suffering is actually especially painful. And that's why when people say, for example, there are so many people who are suffering in the world. Why don't you do something practical? Why do you sit and just discuss some philosophy? Well, actually, philosophy itself helps us make some sense of life. And making sense of life means that it helps us find helps us decrease the severity of suffering. So I had said I will make one point, but this one point has become very long. So I'll just make one more point, and that will also be very long. No, it won't be very long. But I was talking about meaning. Everybody seeks meaning in life. So Krishna in this verse is saying that bhakti gyana kriyatmakam. So at one level he's saying these three are all ways of creating meaning in life. Bhakti, jnana and karma. So karma is what? Okay, there is suffering, but work to make a positive difference. That the idea of karma is, yes, there is so much suffering in the world. There are so many children who are starving. Well, I can't remove the hunger of all of them, but I'll make sure that my children never starve. Now you could say that is self-centered, but at least we are all limited beings. We are working to make a positive difference. That is broadly, I'm not talking about karma yoga, I'm just talking about the path of action. I started by talking about the driving question. Driving question, we are defined by a driving question. So, what is it that brings meaning to life? So, the path of karma is that what can I do to make a positive difference? The path of jnana is more of think or analyze to make sense of life's negativities. To make sense of life's negativities. That when something is happening, how do I make sense of this? If we can't make sense of it, it's terrible. Even Srila Prabhupada, for example, he was trying so much to share Krishna Bhakti. He was trying so hard to build a business so that he could support his spiritual master's mission. Nowadays, mobility is very common. It's like, especially in this world of software or in contemporary culture, a person who stays at one job for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's an anomaly, it's an exception. In the past, especially when people would get a government job, I'm settled for life now. The only time you come out of your office is after you get retired. It's like that. But the point is, in that time, when people were much more concerned about security, Srila Prabhupada was trying different businesses. Prabhupada first had a business in Kolkata, then he came to Mumbai, and then he went to Prayag. He had the Prayag pharmacy there. Now, in those times, people would not move so much. And to move and start a business. The point I'm making is Prabhupada was trying very hard. And was just not succeeding. It was not succeeding. And then when Prabhupada read the Bhagavatam 10th canto, Yasyaham anugranami harishe tadhanam shanai. That those people on whom I have special mercy, I take everything away. And then that helped Prabhupada make sense. Okay, I am trying to serve Krishna. Why is my service not working? So gyana is not just gyana marga. Gyana is actually wisdom that helps us make sense of our life situation. So when there is suffering, we need to do some activity to deal with the suffering, to minimize the suffering. That's one part of it. That gives some meaning to us. I'm making some difference. But there's some wisdom also that helps us make sense of the suffering. That is very helpful. But that's all. The third way is bhakti. Bhakti is connection. It is connection to rise beyond suffering. That means that we understand that this world is a place of distress, but if I am connected with Krishna, then Krishna will raise me above distress, and Krishna will empower me to act in ways that will help me raise others above distress. So here we are beyond suffering means here we are making not just a material difference, but we are also making a spiritual difference. So when Arjuna was fighting the war was terrible. In one sense, the Bhagavad Gita is spoken at a very traumatic time. What is a traumatic time? It is when good people have no good choices. Like somebody is a good person, they always want to do something good. But there's a good person and they have no good choice. What do you do at that time? Arjuna had was a situation like that, and Krishna helped Arjuna make sense of that situation. Krishna helped Arjuna, so Krishna gave him some gyana. Krishna told Arjuna to fight. Okay, the world is a terrible place, but okay, what do you do? It is maybe one evil is lesser than the other evil. Now, this movie Oppenheimer has become quite popular in India as well as the world. So, Oppenheimer is considered the father of the atom bomb. So, many of these scientists, whether it be Oppenheimer or actually the whole idea of the Manhattan Project, which led to the development of the atom bomb, that started with Einstein. Now, Einstein was a Jew and he had escaped from Germany when the Holocaust started. And then he was keeping tabs on scientific research, and he got some news that Germany was on the verge of developing an atom bomb. And then he wrote an emergency letter to the American president Eisenhower, right? Eisenhower saying that America needs to develop this right away. If Germany develops it, it will be a disaster. So eventually, when that bomb was developed and the bomb was deployed, so what happened after that was that, in one sense, the history it's a history. The political history is always complicated, but by the time the atom bomb was developed, Germany was already defeated. Now Japan was still fighting. Now, how long would the war with Japan have gone on? Some historians say Japan was just about to surrender. Others were saying that because Japan was relatively speaking a island, it's not landlocked. So for people, for other countries to attack Japan and subordinate Japan would have taken a long time. So anyway, they decided to use the atom bomb over there. So after that, Einstein bitterly regretted. He said, I should not have done this. Oppenheimer said that. He told, I think, Woodrow Roosevelt, who was the next president, he said, I have blood on my hands. And then Roosevelt was saying, no, it's not blood on your hands, it's blood on my hands. And afterwards, he said, this is what politics is all about. He says, no, he's such a crybaby. Don't bring him to me again. So the point is that at that time, especially afterward, the Holocaust came about, of almost 5 million Jews were killed in gas chambers. See, brutality has always been there in human history. There have always been terrible people. But the Holocaust is the one incident in human history which brought industrial efficiency to mass murder. Murder has been done, mass murder has also been done. But to bring industrial efficiency to mass murder, that means create gas chambers and don't just kill people so that you bury them. Industrial efficiency, just reduce them to gas. And they can kill thousands and thousands of people like that. So it was a terrible thing. Sometimes you just face a situation where if you make the bomb, millions will be killed. But if you don't make the bomb, millions more may be killed. So Arjuna, when he had to fight the battle means many people would be killed. But if he doesn't fight the battle, then Duryodhana will be in power. And that person in power would mean far more brutality is possible in society. So at that time, how does one make sense? So that is where bhakti comes in. Krishna tells Arjuna that you are fighting not just to make the best of a bad bargain. Yes, it is a bad bargain and we should make the best of it. But Krishna says, you are thinking that, I have to fight against Bhishma and Drona and that's such a terrible thing to do. No. He says, you think you are the well-wisher of Bhishma and Drona, therefore you should not fight against them? He says, I am their greater well-wisher. And I have a plan for them. You think your arrows shooting them will hurt them? But I know that Duryodhana's arrow-like words are hurting them even more right now. That Duryodhana was a perpetually ungrateful master. Now, some people, you do 100 things for them and they can't find one word to thank you for even one of those 100 things. But they find 100 words to find the 101st thing that you didn't do and criticize you for that. So Duryodhana was like that. He was constantly minimizing their Kshatriya valor. Because you're partial to the Pandavas, therefore you're not fighting wholeheartedly. He says they are circumstantially caught in that situation. And by fighting this war, you will be actually liberating them from that situation. And because they are virtuous souls, because they are devoted souls, they will be elevated. So Krishna has a plan. And when we act according to that plan of Krishna, then what happens? I earlier talked about this worship. There's worship and there is work. But what the Gita tells Arjuna is work as a form of worship. Swakarmana tam abhyarcha. Now the verse is very clear. Swakarmana tam abhyarcha. That means by your work, worship that Lord. Now this is often mistranslated as work is worship. Now if work is worship, the donkey will be the greatest worshipper. Isn't it? So work is not intrinsically worship. If, what is it? Krishna is saying is work as worship. Not is, but as. That means work in a mood of worship. Worship the Lord through your work. So the idea is if somebody has singing ability, somebody has scientific ability, somebody has artistic ability, somebody has parenting ability, somebody has managerial ability. So we have various roles in this world. So this is the concluding part I'll talk about. See, we all have our, this is, you forget everything else, try to remember this one image. See, there are many sources of meaning for us in our life. You know, for some people, their job gives them some meaning. And like, if you have a job according to your nature, you get some intrinsic meaning in that. For some people, their ashram gives them meaning. That, okay, I'm a parent and I take responsibility of my parenting very carefully. And just making sure that I take care of my children, that gives a sense of meaning in life. So yes, these are sources of meaning. Yes. So now, and beyond that, there is Krishna. Now we connect with Krishna through bhakti. So Krishna is the source of ultimate meaning. So what the Bhagavad Gita is telling us is that you could call this as sources of immediate meaning. In this world, I get meaning. As a doctor, when I treat people, I get a sense of meaning. When I take care of children, I get some meaning. So what the bhakti that Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita is that we link the source of immediate meaning with the source of ultimate meaning. That means don't just be a parent for Krishna. Be a parent in service to Krishna. Don't just be a business person, be a business person in service to Krishna. Don't just be a singer, don't just be a writer, be a singer or a writer in service to Krishna. And in this way, if you can link that which is of immediate meaning with that which is of ultimate meaning, then that is when our life can become most meaningful. Then we can have satisfaction even in this world, that we are making some tangible difference in this world, and we will have the satisfaction of linking with Krishna and ultimately attaining Krishna. So this is the model of bhakti that Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita. So from this perspective, understand karma is also good. Somebody is doing some work which helps them to make a difference, that's great. Somebody is getting some wisdom that helps them make sense of life, that's also good. But if somebody can do work and have wisdom that also links them with the ultimate purpose of life, that is the most meaningful. That is the most meaningful. In this way, na samsaranti jushanti. Krishna says that, and then you won't come back in the cycle of samsara. Tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha mai aveshita chetasam. You'll all come, Krishna says, I will be the swift deliverer from the samsara chakra, the cycle of birth and death. So I'll summarize what we discussed today. So I started by talking about how Krishna talks about two paths. There's a path of just gross sense gratification, which will keep one in samsara. And as contrasted with that, Krishna is saying that path up to him ultimately, that path has, in one sense, three lanes. That is the three lanes of karma, jnana and bhakti. So we discussed, this is the first choice that Krishna talks about. And then to understand this, we talked about how when a person is existing, there are everybody in one sense is defined by their driving questions. The driving question, so I use three different terms, question, then I use, it's our desire. What is my desire? What inspires me to wake up in the morning? And then that is related with meaning. What is it that brings meaning in my life? So we analyze in terms, say, for somebody, just escaping from the material. That is the most important thing. And if that is the case, then that is practically meaningless. That means the thing they look forward to is, where can I get my next drink? When can I watch the next TV show? That's all. So this is tamasic. And unfortunately, this is being promoted more and more in the world today. Then the next is, you get material things. And this can also bring some meaning in life. If a person is lived in poverty, to get financial security, that can bring definitely some meaning in life. This is, you could say, rajasic. Then beyond that is, you give material things. To some extent, this is sattva, where a person who becomes wealthy, they want to give some charity. Why? Because in giving they get some meaning, and that is good at one level. But then, beyond material things, is there something more to life? What is it that is enduring? What really counts? And that is where we start connecting with spirituality, with transcendence. So we'll connect with we connect with ourselves with spirituality. So here also there are two levels. We get spirituality ourselves, and then we give spiritual things, spiritual wisdom, spiritual assets. So that is how there is increasing meaning in a person's life. So that was the broad second point that we discussed. And then when we talked about meaning, how does a person find meaning? I talked about how there is in this world, when we work itself can give meaning. So if work is done only for extrinsic purposes, then it can often become exploitative and destructive. Paradharmo bhayavaha. If a doctor doesn't get any pleasure in curing people, then that will prolong the disease so that you can just mint money from there. So there is intrinsic satisfaction. So when there is intrinsic satisfaction, then that person actually becomes more service oriented. That person becomes more selfless, more committed. So that is the varna aspect. So relatively speaking, for a person, can the work be meaningful? Yes, it can be meaningful. This was, we talked about, broadly you can say, work is associated with the path of karma. So karma can help one find meaning in life, because okay, the world is a terrible place, but I am doing something to minimize the suffering of this world. Then the next part I discussed was about wisdom. That if suffering is going to be there in everyone's life, but gyana is where you get wisdom. And wisdom helps us to make sense of life. It helps us to decrease the suffering. Because you could say that suffering is always there, but then what causes greater suffering is pointless suffering. And therefore, if there is meaningful suffering, sensible suffering, it makes sense. Why did this happen? Then that itself actually increases. So jnana is, we try to make intellectual, philosophical sense. We get wisdom by which you can make sense of suffering. And that is also one way to seek something higher, to seek some meaning. And then lastly, we talked about bhakti. And then bhakti, I talked about it, how bhakti is about connecting with Krishna, but it is not just about connecting with Krishna. Bhakti is actually about, there is work and then there is worship. So, work can make a difference. Worship, where we connect with Krishna, that can also make a difference. But work with worship can help us to make the biggest difference. It is different. We feel that I am making a difference in this world, while I am also moving beyond this world. So we discussed about how wherever we are, we may have our varna, we may have our ashram, we may have various roles, but we link all of them with Krishna. And that is the way to the most meaningful way of living. Connect the sources of immediate meaning with the connector, with the source of ultimate meaning. And that is why how a person goes, Tesham aham samuddharta. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Do we have time for questions? A few questions we can take. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Guruji, for so analytically and very clearly explaining how we have to find purposeful meaning in our life. So my question was that you were talking about longing that it is there in the everyone. So in our practice of bhakti, we have this spiritual longing that I want to do practice bhakti more and serve more. Usually, when this is this longing is so much dependent on the dependence, or it's dependent on the externals. Like when I'm in the association, when I'm in the goodness, then I'm able to do more. But when we are succumb to passion and ignorance, and what happens is the same longing comes down. So how do we go to make this longing intense, even when we are put in the externals of rajas and tamas?
Okay. So how do we keep our higher longings when we are put uh, in situations that create other longings within us? You can say, yeah. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in life, that we all have varieties of desires. We have higher desires and we have lower desires. So if we consider, life is all about desire management. There are higher desires which we want to strengthen, and we have lower desires which we want to weaken. Now, do our externals affect us? Of course. When we are conducive environment, that's the time when our higher desires will grow. But other times the lower desires will grow. So what do we do? Well, first thing is that when we have the external atmosphere to nourish higher desire, we dive into that atmosphere. We take that full opportunity for that, and we benefit from that. We avail full benefit of that. And the second is that when the lower desire comes in, at that time, we need to have some, you could say the word, structure, schedule, system for dealing with that. It's very difficult to constantly keep the higher desire equally strong within us. We can't have unrealistic expectations from ourselves. That means that to expect that no lower desire will come in my mind, to expect that I will always be filled with higher desires, now, that expectation itself will set us up for frustration. So we can't have that. And Krishna also says, that's why in 270 he uses the word na kama kami apuryamana pratishtam samudramapah pravishanti advat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. Now what does na kama kami means? What it literally means is that, in one sense, temptation will come from outside, but the temptation doesn't have to convert into intention. We can create a break over here. So to expect that we will not feel tempted, that is unrealistic. So we will all feel tempted, because that's just the nature of the world. This is karma. But when it becomes the intention, then we become kami. So na kama kami. So don't let, just because the desire has come in, don't become a desirer of that desire. So now how do we do that? We can say it's a matter of strong determination, but it's not just a matter of strong determination. It's more than that. We need a supporting structure. So supporting structure means that if we have a proper schedule for our life, then there is not so much time there for, even if the desire comes, the desire doesn't get space within us. In psychology, this is called the principle of propinquity. The technical meaning of propinquity is the effect of distance and effort on human behavior. Practically what it means is that, say if this is your home and this is your office. and say a person is going along this path and there's a bar and the person likes to drink. Now what happens is when they're going by the bar, they just drink in, take a drink and go. Hmm? But suppose the bar is somewhere here. Hmm? Then you have to go all the way here and come. This may take 30 minutes extra. Then what happens is that person thinks, okay, I don't have that much time. Maybe some other day I'll drink. Some other day. Now, of course, there are times when the person has so strong desire that 30 minutes, that person go 30 hours to another part of the country to drink also. So we are not talking about that. See, there are many desire. When desire comes within us, quite often the desire is almost like a casual desire. चलो खा लेते थोड़ा, चलो थोड़ा movie देख लेते. Let's watch something. It's quite often. Sometimes the desires are very intense, and those we have to fight a whole war for them, with them. But quite often it's a casual desire, and sometimes that casual desire leads to a casualty. That doesn't have to happen. So how can we prevent that from happening? That is, if we have a structure for our life. That means that if there is some desire that we don't want to indulge in, then make indulging in that desire difficult. So if you are working in a workplace, and then maybe everybody does partying over there, people eat, people drink, eat meat, and so many things. Now every time somebody offers that, then the temptation comes. Oh, should I take? No, I shouldn't take. I should take. I should not take. But suppose you tell them that I don't drink. And then if you decide to drink, hey, you told me you didn't drink. So what happens is, instead of that external environment creating a temptation, you rearrange it so that the external arrangement creates the support for you. Or at least it creates an obstacle for us doing that activity. So now how do we do that? So basically we need to make indulging in our lower desires more difficult for us. So how do you do that? That each individual has to find that out. So that's why if you have a structure, like Prabhupada would say that it's not that I don't have lust, I don't have time for lust. What he meant by that, he had created so many engagements for himself. So much structure, schedule, system is there that if the desire comes, it doesn't grow. There's no time for it to grow. There's no space for it to grow. So that is what we can do, because if we have to constantly be battling desire, that will be exhausting, and eventually you'll give up. But if we are engaged, then what happens is, in one sense, we just almost transcend desire. See, it happens even at a material level. If somebody has an urgent project deadline, then people may even forget to eat their lunch at that time. Now, what in material circle they call as going into your zone or peak performance. It happens. So we need to create positive energy, a structure by which that positive energy is sustained in our life. And then that negativity can be dealt with much better. Okay. Maybe one or two more questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, thank you very much for such a wonderful class. I could actually relate to almost all the topics that you were telling. And one thing that was clear to me, Prabhuji, that Tamogun is a very dark place. So the devotees, many times it is said that when a devotee has some propensity to do something, that can be dovetailed in Krishna's service. But what about those devotees who were tamogunic from their previous time? Like from birth, they have been only into escapism and mentality. Like practically their whole life, as you had said, that there is no reason for them to get out of bed. And even after coming to Bhakti also, we many times what happens is the service and the lectures that we hear also becomes an escape from reality. Rather than trying to increase our love for Krishna, we put on a lecture or we just do something so that it becomes an escape from reality. Rather than bringing us closer to Krishna, it is just another escapist mentality. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I think you should hope I don't understand. Yeah, this is in religious psychology. This is called as a whole. There are books written on this topic. It is called as spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing means basically you use God to stay away from God. That means what? That actually God can manifest in many ways in our life. Say, for example, if I have some relationship issue with someone, then maybe that means I have to learn to become more humble. Maybe I have to learn a little more sensitivity. So that relationship issue is an indicator to me that there is some area in which I need to learn and grow and become better. But instead of that, no, maybe that requires some hard work. I have to hear the other person. I have to understand what the other person is saying. Maybe I have to go to some counselor, talk with them. But instead of that, you say, no, why do all this talking? I'll just chant some extra rounds. Now, chanting extra rounds is good. But chanting extra rounds to avoid dealing with issues, that is not good. So yes, it can become escapism. So the point is that our service to Krishna is both internal and external. If the internal is at the cost of the external, then that can be escapism. So now, of course, there are times, if you see our devotion, there is the internal aspect, it's our personal connection with Krishna. There's the external aspect. This is Mam Anusmara. And the external aspect is Yudhyacha. Fight. So our service has both aspects, the internal and external. And sometimes when we are just exhausted with the external, we need the internal. And it's important. That's why we do seva during the day. Then we also have sadhana. But sometimes you can get exhausted by the internal also. You also need the external, isn't it? Sometimes you may say that, oh, I don't get time to study scripture. I have so many things to do. Okay. Suppose somebody says, okay, for next 1 month, all your services are gone. Just study scripture every day 12 hours. 1 day, 2 day, okay, I want some service now. It becomes like that. So we just can't stay internal or external. So we need a balance of both. Now, how exactly that balance will come, that depends on person to person. So we have to intelligently find that. So I would say, can bhakti be used to escape? Well, there are two different words for this: escaping and retreating. And the two are not the same. Now, dealing with reality is exhausting, and we all need to retreat. Like sometimes an army is fighting, and then the opposite army is too powerful. Then you retreat so that you can fight another day. So escaping and retreating are not the same thing. In bhakti, we all need to retreat regularly. In fact, what to speak of bhakti? Everyone needs some retreat. That's why Krishna says, Yukta viharasya. Vihara is meant to be like a retreat. So we all need to retreat at times from life. But the purpose of retreating is not running away from reality. It is so that I can become better rejuvenated, better rested, better reoriented, and I can deal with reality again. So in bhakti, sometimes if we had that past tendency for escapism, then it's best to talk with some senior devotee who understands us and sympathetically, they empathically possible, and then they can tell us, okay, when are we using bhakti as an escape way, and when are we using bhakti as a retreat? And some people may need to retreat more because based on the kind of wounds they have from the past, that's fine. But the difference between escaping and retreating is a substantial difference. But sometimes for us to find that difference, ourselves may be difficult. So that's why, to understand this difference, it's good to have some guidance. And even if our past has been characterized by escaping, see, we are all, if we consider our past and our present we, so we are all products of our past. But we are not prisoners of our past. So we don't have to be prisoners. Yes, in the past we have had certain tendencies, and those tendencies may be the default tendencies for us. But we can change. So, okay, right now, what is it that is meaningful for me? Let me start doing that in a small way. And as you start doing that, then the tendency to escape will slowly start changing into the tendency to retreat. Yeah, I want to do this, and I want to do this properly. And that's why I need some strength. So I'll retreat so that I can re-engage. Okay? Thank you. So thank you very much. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna.
So thank Prabhuji for my time chanting Hare Krishna Nama. So there are books.
I just talk about one. So there are several books I have written, but I'll just talk about some of them. This is the latest book, You Are Not Your Mind. So much of what I talked about desire management today, spiritual bypassing and things like that, these are explained in through 64 articles in this book. This is, each article is just 2 pages with a small image diagram describing it and a one sentence summary, some reflection questions. So this can become a useful toolkit for developing a healthier relationship with our mind. And apart from that, there are several other books also available. Most of these books are about practical application of the Bhagavad Gita. These two are 365 articles for applying the Bhagavad Gita in daily life. There are sections about how to improve our relationships, how to be more sensitive in speech, less judgmental in our talking with others, how to deepen our bhakti and not just be ritualistic, how to face adversities. Both of these have 365 articles, each one article per page. And then if you want to know what the Bhagavad Gita itself teaches, apart from applying the Bhagavad Gita, what is its teaching? These two books are there. This is Relishing Bhagavad Gita. It talks about the Gita from a relational perspective. The Gita is not just philosophy, but it is actually expression of Krishna's love for Arjuna and by extension, divinity's love for humanity. So this is those verses on the Gita which highlight the personal devotional aspect of the Gita. They are explained in this. There are 100 articles in both these books, again with some simple diagrams. This follows the mood of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary in the Bhagavad Gita. This is the Gita from a rational perspective, where this follows Baldev Vidyabhushan's mood and answers common questions that might come for anyone who reads the Bhagavad Gita. If we are detached, won't that make us lazy or irresponsible? If God controls everything, then do we really have free will? If the modes are the doers, then why are we held responsible? Why do we get karma for what we do? Questions like these are answered in these books. So, and a few other books are also available, and I'm also available in case any of you would like me to sign the book. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
So anybody wants a book, they can take Prabhuji's signature books. And down is prasadam for all the devotees. And evening class is 6:30 in the temple hall. In the temple hall, 6:30 p.m.
I had a question not connecting to this class. One devotee asked me that one of his colleagues asked why the path of Hinduism is based out of, means in the for our context, the path where